But just on the salaries themselves, I mean, is there a figure that you think is too much for an executive to earn? I mean, is $5 million too much? Is $10 million too much? Or aren't you willing to put a figure on it?
What I've signalled quite clearly, David, is that the government, through the Australian Prudential Regulatory Authority and through the Treasury, will now, in the months ahead, work through the detail of a set of changes to the rules which we will then seek to put on the international agenda too, because remuneration arrangements for financial institutions internationally are as important as to what applies nationally here in Australia. The key thing is to get that formula right, so that we have a set of rules which discourage, as I said before, excessive risk-taking. And you can link that to the prudential standards which are then applied to each individual financial institution. We intend to get that right. We're going to be thorough about it. That's why we're in the process of working through the detail with the Australian Prudential Regulatory Authority and with the Treasury.
I want to ask you, Prime Minister, about what this crisis means for the global fight against global warming. Overnight, 8 Eastern European countries and Italy have now walked away from their commitment to reducing emissions by 20% by 2020. Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi says now is not the time to be playing Don Quixote on climate change. Is this financial crisis a setback for the environment?
It certainly makes the international environment tougher for dealing with what is already a tough set of negotiations. But what I'd say to leaders around the world and to the community here in Australia is that the problem of climate change and global warming doesn't disappear because of the global financial crisis. It is there, it needs to be dealt with, and it also has a huge economic cost attached to it called the economic cost of inaction, and that cost is greater than the economic cost of action. Therefore, it's important for the international community and Australia to begin setting the rules for the future, because unless we deal with this, the roll-on consequences for the economy over time in the rural sector, agricultural production and overall security of water supply is huge, and huge for the Australian economy, because we are already the hottest and driest continent. Therefore, we have an acute national economic interest at stake in making sure there is an effective international set of rules.
And is that the message you'll be giving business leaders at the summit you're attending today?
When I attend this meeting with business leaders in Sydney, we have a very clear objective, which is to obtain their feedback about what needs to be done further in dealing with the consequences of the global financial crisis for the real Australian economy. We announced the other day our approach in a $10.4 billion economic security strategy for the future. And that is designed to provide much needed stimulus for the economy in the immediate period ahead. That follows on a decision by the Reserve Bank to reduce rates by 100 basis points only a week or so ago. On top of that, we have the measures that we've announced on the security of bank deposits and the guarantees to bank lending into the future, that is, their term finance arrangements. But you know, it's very important to hear directly from the business community on the ground about what's going on and about what further actions may be necessary in the future. Canberra's not the ultimate repository of all wisdom. I've said that many times before. So we'll be out and about talking with the business community and the general community over what's still going to be a very, very tough time ahead.
A final question, Prime Minister. Are you willing to put the budget into deficit to avoid a recession in Australia?
You know as well as I do, David, that the long-standing economic policy of the Labor Party in opposition, the Labor Party in government, is to maintain a budget surplus over the course of the economic cycle. We've said that repeatedly in the past prior to coming to office, and that is our position now and will be into the future. Fortunately, we took a decision in the May budget this year to set aside a substantial budget surplus as a buffer against the future, a buffer against tough times. Well, those tough times have come, and we're now drawing significantly on that surplus. But we'll still be able to land through this financial year in a comfortable position. But we also remain determined, absolutely determined, to take future action as is necessary with two objectives in mind: supporting the long-term strength of the Australian economy, supporting continued positive growth in the Australian economy, and supporting households on the way through. We believe that's the right course of action, and what's still going to be a very uncertain time ahead for of the global economy and therefore its flow-through impact on Australia.
OK, but a surplus over the cycle, your commitment there, that does mean you can go into deficit if necessary.
Well, as we've said repeatedly, and the Treasurer has said repeatedly, it means maintaining a budget surplus over the course of the economic cycle. That's the responsible course of action. It's one we've committed to over many, many years. I've committed to since becoming leader of the Labor Party, since becoming Prime Minister. The Treasurer has confirmed that. That will be our policy into the future. It is the right policy, it's the responsible course of action, and I believe through our conservative economic management in the period that we've been in office, we've demonstrated fundamentally our strong credentials on this matter.
All right, Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, thank you.
Thanks for having me on the program.